911, what's your emergency? 911, what's your emergency?
Be advised, Car 4 has control of the pursuit. Proceed with caution.
Good evening, everyone. How are you all doing? It's good to see you all. Hi, Deb. Hey, Rose Paradise. Hey, Polygraph. Hi, Rob. Hi, Purdue RN. Hey, John. Good to see you. Hi, Lynn. Hello, Tech Death. Always good to have you here, my dear. Hey, Sierra. Hey, Herman. Hi, Danger Dave. How are you? Hey, Pamela. How are you? Hi, Lipsha. Hey, Cal. Hi, Jennifer. How are you doing? Welcome, everyone. As you guys know, tonight I have a guest. I'm going to be speaking with Steve from True Crime Web, and we're going to be talking about his, hey, CJK, how are you? We're going to be talking about his recent trip to Delphi, and I know it's going to be a good conversation. He just finished his own live, so he'll be here in a bit. I'm going to give him a minute to get a drink, and maybe he wants to grab a bite to eat. I have some things that I need to talk and discuss with you guys anyway. So take your time, Steve. We'll all be here waiting when you're able to get here. I'm feeling great, you guys. Thank you so much for asking. Things seems to have quieted down, and I am feeling much better. So thank you so much. I welcome everyone who's coming over from True Crime Web's live stream, and welcome. I'm so happy to have all of you. Hello, Molly. How are you, my dear? I'm sure Danger Dave, he probably is. Hi, This'll Do Nicely. How are you? So I wanted to say something tonight right off the bat. I've kind of been in a mood this week, and those who know me really well around the true crime world have all noticed it. And some of them have asked me about it a little bit. We've kind of talked about it behind the scenes. And first of all, I just want to say, for everyone out there who feels the need to criticize me for welcoming my subscribers and my members who come to see my shows every time I go live, I'm sorry if that offends you. I'm sorry if you don't like me to go through that process. But I appreciate everyone who comes here. And I want to let them know. I like to give shout outs to my members. I like to give shout outs to those. I'm just waving to Steve backstage. I like to give shout outs to the people who follow me regularly and those who contribute to my channel, whether it be my moderators, whether it be people who are here just supporting me. That's what I do here. I don't feel that it's rude. I don't feel that it is out of place. It is how I run my channel. So if people who feel they need to leave those kind of comments, like, stop greeting everyone and just get to it, if that's how you feel you want your channel run, then start your own channel and run it that way. But I like to say hello to everyone and welcome them here because I really appreciate all of them and all of you guys. So I just wanted to get that off my chest. I also will tell you that, yeah, I have been in a mood. And we'll talk about that a little bit tonight. I'll talk about that a little bit with Steve. There's just a lot going on in the true crime world right now that I'm not happy about. And we're going to get into that a little bit because we're going to be talking, before we delve into Delphi, we're going to be talking a little bit about the Quentin Simmons case, who you guys know I have been covering and following. And Quentin has touched my heart more than I can ever tell you. This little baby didn't have a chance. The people that were supposed to be protecting him didn't, and everyone dropped the ball with this little boy. And it just breaks my heart. It really breaks my heart. The grandmother was granted custody of these two children in her home, and she left and went out of state and left these children alone with her daughter, who she knew had already been told by the court that she was not in any shape to care for them, that they, whether it be neglectful or whatever, it was, they were not safe with her. That's why her mother was granted custody. And it just makes me angry. Like, it's like people just don't even stop and think about these little kids, and we just keep hearing about them one right after another. Between that little baby and the recent revelation about the identification of the little boy in the suitcase from this past spring, early summer, now here we are. We've got another child that has perished at the hands of their mother, and it's just heartbreaking. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Steve on if he's ready. Steve, are you ready to come on? Or are you still drinking coffee?
Getting everything set up.
Okay, well, there you are. It's fine. Take your time. No problems at all.
Oh no,
You
we're
know,
ready.
I know that you were just ending your own life. So
Yeah, I was trying to get everything set up and cleared off my this here Google machine, and here I am now.
it's okay. It's so good to see your smiling face.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me and asking.
Oh, it's not a problem. I love having you. I love listening to your insights, your expertise. I mean, I could talk to you for hours. I would never get tired of that. So I'm sure Mrs. Steve might, but I
Yes,
don't.
she does. Yeah. Like I said, if anyone ever sat at the dinner table with us and listened to the topics that we discussed, they would try to figure out the relationship that we have. But it's worked for over 3 decades, so I'm.
There
She
there
is
you
the
go.
foundation of
That's
this
all that
here.
matters, right?
That's all that matters.
Yep, for sure. Well, I think you heard me talking a little bit about Quentin. I'm going to share my screen here because I just want to put him up while I talk about him a little bit. And I know that you're aware of his case. And this is baby Quentin, who went missing October the 5th. October the 5th was a Wednesday. And his mother reported him missing out of a playpen at 9:30 in the morning. And hey, Louisa, thank you so much for your super sticker. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it very much. Anyway, he went missing. His his mother's boyfriend said that he saw him in the playpen at 6 a.m. when he left to go to work. That's all we pretty much well know, except for the fact that the law enforcement has come out and said that baby Quentin's mother is responsible for his death. They believe that he is no longer with us, and they have been searching for him feverishly in a landfill near the family home. The grandmother has said that they have Leilani, his mother, on camera at a dumpster, and they believe that his body was put there and then ended up in a landfill. They've not found anything so far, and it's sad. But I know that they are meticulously going through that garbage dump and landfill looking for him or any sign of him. One of the things that's bothering me about this case, and Steve, maybe we can talk about it a little bit, is how this case is kind of turning into a circus. And what's happening is we have people camped out across the street from the home of this family. And this is a dead child that we're talking about. This is a child who has lost his life, a baby, and no one has been arrested yet. No one is in custody. And we've got these people, just general people, camped out across the street, protesting, screaming hateful things to the family that's in this house. And they've even been arrested because some of them have gone on the property and done all of these crazy things. There's people walking around with signs saying that they want to marry his mother. And I mean, it's just ridiculous, the stuff that's coming out of there. And I don't understand what's going on in this society and around these cases. People talk about what happened with the Summer Wells case and how things just got crazy with that case. Here we have this case. It's not even a month old yet, and we've got people behaving this way. What do you think about it, Steve? It's down there close by you, not in Georgia, but it's close.
Actually, it is part of Georgia, over in Savannah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It is.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
I think this is just, it appears it's going to be a remake of the exact same thing that we had with Casey Anthony with Kaylee and everything that happened there. Families were camped out. There was a lot of hostilities, same situation of other than courts ordering who had custody. But there's a lot of similarities of that. And is that going to be the storyline of what happened here with Quentin? And, you know, is that the stage as being set? We just don't know yet. But whenever law enforcement does decide to, or whenever that grand jury, and how far along are we towards that grand jury and towards those charges?
Right. The grandmother came out just a couple of days ago. Maybe it was even yesterday. There is a conversation she had with Quentin's father, who was not present, who lives not anywhere near Quentin, but she had a conversation with him that she told him that the mom, her daughter Leilani, and the boyfriend were very high, very out of it, and had put him in a bathtub, and he ended up drowning. That's what the story is that the grandmother has told. Oh. And where it goes from there, whether it's just total panic and then they just did what they did, I don't know. I don't think any of us do. I know a lot of us were thinking something bad happened to him, obviously, but it just is, like I said, it just boggles my mind that how, and I'm not really trying to, I mean, the family's hurting enough, and I get that, but these children just it's like they just have no chance, you know? Yeah. I mean, he was taken away from his mom because the court saw that there was an issue with her being able to care for him. And then he was ultimately left in her care. You know, I just think that that's just horrific.
It is. I mean, so many children are, you know, you see it constantly. Our court systems fail them. And we're going to have to do something. And like I said, that's for greater minds than me. I have absolutely no respect or any use for anyone that is negligent in the care of a child. You know, they're absolutely dependent not only on their family, but, you know, it angers me because it's part of our society that we allow this. And what is the answer? I wish that it was, you know, something easily fixed, but it's not. And I don't know how we're going to get the Child Protective Services to be held accountable. Don't know how we're going to get these judges that says so-and-so can keep this child or allows it to go into a certain home, how we hold them accountable. I mean, there's so many, you know, that they just passed a buck that, you know, they're the ones that were responsible. And,
right. Well, how did they put him in a home with a responsible party, knowing that he was still living with the person that was not supposed to have him? That's what got me. Because I'm like,
even the family.
floored
The
me.
family played a part in it also, that they had agreed to whatever, to deny or just ignore what the courts had already said that this is what should happen, and they
Exactly.
ignored it. And
Yep.
they had the full backing of law enforcement and of the courts to say that that child didn't have to be there,
Right.
and yet they allowed it. So I don't, I'm not here to blame the family, but I am here to say that the family had the ability to protect this child, and they failed.
Exactly. No, that's why I'm angry. I'm just angry because I'm like, you were given him because you were expected to protect him and keep him safe. And you left him with the person who was not supposed to have him because they didn't take care of him and keep him safe. And that makes no sense to me. And especially as a mother and a grandmother, I just can't understand it. But with that being said, my heart goes out to this little baby. I hope that we get justice for Quentin sooner than later. I know there's so much going on with this case right now. And like I said, what bothers me is how it's kind of turning into this circus, and that I hope content creators and the people that are out there do not play into that and start showing it and talking about it too much, because that's just going to make these crazy people come out of the woodwork, in my opinion, so that they get more attention. I just can't get over it.
And and there's a fine edge there. We do need to bring much focus so that we can address the issue. It
Sure.
has to be discussed. It has to be handled. And everybody, our legislatures, our courts, everybody, and us as individuals, that if you remain silent, you carry some of the of the issues that is not protecting our children. Call me. I'll come pick up a child. And we do have certain laws that protecting a newborn, that you, without any issue, you can leave a child at certain points, and which is a great advancement. But it should also that these children here, that once the courts allow, and that if it's reported that violations occurred, we're going to have to start figuring out how to hold these people accountable. And I don't know what the answer is. It's so confusing to me. And I've dedicated most of my life to this, and I'm at a loss.
And that's the thing, as a law enforcement officer, you see the worst of the worst. You have to go into those homes and on those calls, and you get to see the stuff that we can't even fathom what that's like, and the abuse and the neglect and all of that. And what that must do to you psychologically, I can't even imagine, because I know how this upsets me just from this direction. And then you guys having to be on the front lines for it. Like I said, I agree with you 100% that we definitely need to be doing something legislatively to fix the system. It is not working, and it's not in just one state. This is all over our country. It's happening everywhere. It's not just one state's problem. And so I just, I don't know. I just hope and pray that something happens soon and we stop losing these children like this. Hey, Louisa, thank you so much for joining. So much appreciate you. Thank you so much. But anyway, I just wanted to give that update. That's really what's going on with Quentin. They really don't have anything else to talk about, except they're still working the landfill and they're still looking for him. And I do know the boyfriend fled the state and he is somewhere else. I think North Carolina, the last I heard. He went back to his family or something. He left. So that is a suspect as well. But
no, I had my encounters seeing these children. You go in there and when I leave, of course, no one's happy with me because I've cussed out everybody in the household and asked what type of people are you to allow such a situation to even put a child in this. And I was hot-headed in certain circumstances. I know that's hard to believe, but I could become hot-headed.
Oh, I think I could see it. I mean, you're a sweet person and a kind person, but given the right circumstance, I can see your ire come up. And who wouldn't with children? I mean, anybody that's got a compassionate bone in their body, I don't know how we could expect anything different from you.
There's a lot of syndromes and things that exist for older adults that are in these relationships and stuff. And there's professionals out there that can discuss them. But when it's involving a child that doesn't have the ability of just walking out the door and leaving that situation, it's a totally different matter.
Yep.
And we have to change it. Some of the older adults that are abused and they're within certain, battered women syndrome and all those other types of situations is one thing. But these children, they just don't stand a chance in some of these homes.
They don't, because they are completely 100% reliable on someone to take care of them. He was 19 months old. This baby still needed everything done for him, everything. So, I mean, it's like, yeah, he was able to walk, but that's it, he's 19 months old. So yeah, it's just sad. And my heart goes out to him and his cute little face. I don't think I'll ever forget that face and that smile of that little boy. He just melts my heart every time I see it. But anyway, I wanted to touch on that, and I knew that you wouldn't mind that tonight if we talked a little bit about him. So
I'm yours for just whatever topic. I've got an opinion about everything.
Well, that's good to know. There's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, I wanted, like I said, I wanted to get that out of the way. I also wanted to talk about the situation. Well, we're going to talk about Delphi, and I do want to talk about your trip to Delphi. I know that my subscribers are very aware that you went to Delphi, and you and Mrs. Steve went to Indiana to help some cold case families out there, and you were able to do that. I watched your live stream that when you met with the one family, and it was so wonderful to see you talk to that father and get his take on his poor child who, he doesn't know. He has no idea what's happened to this child. And I can't say enough about how heartbreaking those types of cases are that just go on for years and years and years. Yet in his mind and in his heart, he has an idea, but it's like, how do you get there? How do you?
And it's very similar to Quentin. I mean, you're almost looking at the exact same situation.
It is.
And it's terrible. And he has been affected, and, when you hear a full grown man say that the reason he never had another child was because he couldn't protect the first one. Absolutely.
I know, it's heartbreaking, isn't it?
It is. It is.
I mean, you can tell that it's just eating him up inside.
Yeah. And I like Larry. Me and him, we spent a lot of time together. We've talked on the phone. I contacted him again the day before yesterday, I think, and trying to get some more help for him because he still has a battle, even on his Facebook, of keeping it up because I believe it's his sister that was keeping that part of it up because Larry and I share a common trait. We don't know a lot about all this technology stuff. And so he is still working on getting all that up and everything. And we're trying to get some more help for him on that. And we will, and we have several people that are working on it, more than just one. And so we're looking forward to getting that done and seeing how Larry wants to continue keeping, Amber's name up there and at the forefront the best that he can.
Yeah. And, I think that's commendable. Like I said, I've said it for a few months now about you and what you're doing to help these families, what you're doing to help him. It's just commendable.
We still got a lot to work on it, and I can't go into a lot of details on things that we're looking at and what's going to happen in the future. because we still got some traveling to do and work on that cases. And that's the thing that's most people won't realize that the cases I actively are looking into, I can't create content on them.
Yep.
Other than if the family wants to come on and do a show at a particular time. He was wanting to do a show, and I do whatever the family wants to do.
Sure.
And he said he wanted to get it out there, that hasn't been looked at, and he wanted her name out there. He wanted her to be honored. He wanted people to know his fight for justice. And so I said, absolutely, whatever you want. I don't have a problem with it. And I'll put you out there as much as I can, as much as you want. And, but some of the cases can't do that. Some of the cases I can. And because I give them whatever options. And I always tell the families that whatever we discuss is absolutely private until you tell me I can ever release information on it. And some of them don't want it released. And so, and I can't.
Sure.
And I won't, for the fact that there's still threats to certain individuals out there. These families, they have people that have harmed people in their families, in some cases killed members of their families, and they're still out there walking the streets. And so, so I mean, it's a hard thing to do, but I chose it, and so I don't regret it.
Well, you're doing a fantastic job, and I appreciate it. And I know that everyone else in the true crime community that we're in, that follow you, follow me, other creators. I've heard of so many other followers of other creators say the same thing about you. We all just think that you're just doing a great thing. And I know that it's hard to just hear people say that about you, because it's just something in your heart that feels like you need to do it. But you need to take our compliments. You need to say, it's okay. It's okay to get those, because
I know, but now there's other people helping me that behind the scenes that haven't given me permission to discuss them, and I won't. And because, like I said, it's more than just I and Mrs. Steve. It does. And,
it takes a village, and I'm finding that out just with the Delphi case. And there's so many different people here in our community that we all work together behind the scenes, looking for information, investigating certain things, finding information out. And there's only certain ones we'll share it with, because again, it goes back to somebody made a comment to me this week about the fact that you've got to be careful who you talk to and share information with, because we are just dealing with average public people most of the time. Yourself, no, you're a law enforcement officer that is retired, but you're still law enforcement. You know that mentality, that training. There's other Faxx is another one. And I know sometimes you guys probably are like, well, I'm going to, I trust this person. I'm going to talk to this person about this. And sometimes people talk. They share stuff they shouldn't.
No, I don't. I don't
maybe
share.
not you, but maybe somebody you talk to. And it's like, that's the hard part of all of this, I think. As a community, we need to realize that if somebody comes to us with information and they say to us, please don't talk about what I'm going to tell you, we just don't talk about it. And I think that's hard. It's hard. It's been proven over this almost 6 years of Delphi of how people get information or tidbits, and they immediately want to go live with it or create content.
Oh yeah, and it can be detrimental to the case, and just like with murder sheets, when I first thought, and I said, well, they're revigorating the case, they're bringing more focus on it, but then months later we see that it was actually, some of that was a curse.
Yep.
And has had very damaging
effect.
Yes, on the certain parts of the case. And so what is that fine line? And so as creators, and I do the same, I try to work on certain things, and I know certain things I will never, ever discuss.
Yep.
There's certain things that I can discuss and I will discuss, but there's certain aspects of it that, processing crime scenes. I've had a lot of people send me emails says the way you process crime scenes, criminals don't need to know that. Well, I'm not the only one that creates this stuff. You got to look at the law enforcement agencies out there that do the exact same thing. The luminol, the how to fingerprint, the Department of Justice manuals of how to open and work a cold case. All that stuff is out there, public knowledge. And it's just a matter of you typing it in. It's at your fingertips, and you can see everything and absorb it and understand how an investigation is conducted at any point by what's out there in the public domain now, by this thing that we have on the web. It's amazing. And but I have the naysayers also, but like I said, I'm just trying to get everyone on that if something does happen in their community, how to work with law enforcement to have a positive impact.
Mm-hmm. Because I think that's so important, and I think we can really do a lot of good for cases, and again, we can do completely horrible for cases, and it's not about us. It's not about us as creators. That's one of the points I was trying to get across about Quentin's case. This is about Quentin. This is about Abby and Libby. This is, whatever case you're talking about, it's about the victim. It's not about anybody else. It's about them, and we shouldn't make it about us. And I see a lot of that in our community, and it started to weigh on me a few weeks back, and it's really gotten to me a little bit. And I'm usually a very positive, happy person, and it's kind of just brought me down a notch because I just see it as detrimental to the case, and it just keeps happening, and it bothers me. And
there's some creators out there, they like a lot of drama, and there's more about attacking each other, and it's absolutely amazing.
It's crazy. I mean, I just don't understand why you even get involved. Go be that crazy in some other kind of genre, but not true crime, and especially not when you're talking about dead children. I don't understand that mentality. I don't think I ever will, because I've lost a child. I don't know, but I think there's a lot of us that feel the same way. We don't understand how people can do this and create this kind of crazy. Would they do that if it was their own child? Would they want somebody doing that to their family and their own child? They don't ask those questions.
Well, and a lot of, and I don't know at what point and where their reality is that, we have 2 murdered children, but we also have a psychopath on the street that can kill us and maybe has killed more. We just don't know, but he's out there. And so if we took all that energy for one and focused it totally upon that versus each other, where would we be? And I hope we would be where BG was in the appropriate location.
Yeah, and that's what's frightening. I think that's what was frightening me from the end of August until now, was all the things that were happening around Murder Sheet and all the stuff that they were putting out there, and the fact that there's still a killer or killers walking the street, and those people or person could still hurt others and be drawn to do something based on what's being said about them or based upon what is being released about them, or released about the case. And I know I've heard you say it, and I know I've heard Perry say it. Police officers can get put in danger. These people could barricade themselves somewhere and have a shootout with police. They could do all kinds of damage that way. They could go after witnesses. We have
family members.
Yeah, family members. We have to protect these people. I just happened to watch a case on 2020 a couple of nights ago, and the only witness to the murder was the school teacher's 3-year-old daughter. She happened to be in the back seat of the vehicle when her mother was shot in the head. And that 3-year-old girl, they had to protect from
Yes.
something happening to her, because she was able to tell them who it was, and she was able to tell them exactly what happened and where he took her mother. She was only 3. So they kept everything close to the vest. They didn't release a lot of information on that case until they were able to actually capture him, because they did not want him to know where she was, where the little girl was. And it's just things like that. I don't think people stop and think, Steve.
Yeah. SP 74 had a good point there. Why would anyone tell a creator, not law enforcement? And that's what I tell everybody on my show. Don't tell me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, call law enforcement. If you have a person of interest, or, you know, or you have any evidence, call law enforcement. They're the ones that can do something about it. If you're scared to, of course, notify me and I'll contact them. It's not a big deal.
Yep.
I have, because I get some strange, messages.
I think we all do.
and you look at them and they say certain things and you say, oh, okay. You know, I've had people contact me and says, I witnessed this, certain types of crime, not so much, not Delphi, but other cases that I've talked about, or as I've worked on missing children, because in our database, we've got thousands of children in there now, both missing and murdered. And so we get information all the time. And of course, we have to sort through it and say, you know, what does this mean? And then take appropriate actions.
And it's the truth. And Deb, I understand. I wouldn't be surprised. I can't believe the number of emails that I've gotten just since I started YouTube 8 months ago, with people who send me stuff and I'm like, have you tipped this into the tip line? Because why are you telling me? It's almost the first thing that comes out of my mouth when I, whether it be by email or whether it's a Discord message or whatever it might be, however they contact me. Because
and how many of them are trolls? You know, I'm almost tempted to create a database among creators that we share information that's brought in by different people, so we can eliminate the same ones that calling everybody that know multiple cases. There's, I mean, you know,
the trolls
some
are
of the
ridiculous.
Stuff,
and I think there's a lot of them that have just multiple personas. And it's one person, but they may have 10 different screen names on YouTube or whatever. And all they are here to do is create havoc and crazy. And I agree with you. I love a database like that. But it's nuts. But that is a great idea. I've always said, you know, if us creators got together and pooled our resources and stopped attacking each other or whatever. I mean, I know you don't and I don't attack other creators, but if we got together and pooled that intelligence and our resources, we could do great things. Great things.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's all a matter of collecting. But there, you know, I have some of you talking about personas, that some of the writing that when I get some of the emails, you can tell that this person wrote not only this tip on this case, but the next email from a totally different email is written in the same manner, same spelling, same outrageous whatever, you know, and it's quite amazing.
They forget that they're sending it to a law enforcement officer who's had the training to figure stuff out. And in some of these cases, you don't even have to be that. You know,
no.
We as just people, in general, we just look at them like, that's from the same person. What are you trying to do? You know, have conversation with yourself. I've seen that too.
Oh yeah. And,
I'm like, wow.
But I've been, you know, I wouldn't. I'm not going to change a thing about how I approach what I'm doing right now, and I'm hoping I'm having an impact. We'll see where I'm at, and you know, do I believe I will have an impact on one of these cold cases? Absolutely. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't think that at some point, I already know, because when the two families that I work with up there, they always question certain things, and we're working on and still working on the cases. And, but we answered, like the one thing where I processed, we answered one part of the puzzle that they didn't know what it meant. And so we've answered that one. But now we've given them a new direction of information that they didn't realize, some of the information they got and who they got it from and why. And so when you go in there and you start looking at some of the contacts they've had and why that contact occurred, and they just
Sure.
never understood.
Louisa says, Kristen, is your guest an old detective?
Very
Well,
old.
first of all, I don't think he's old. But secondly, Steve, do you want to tell them, just give them a little bit of your bio real quick for those that don't know who you are?
Yes, I had a 20-year career in law enforcement. Worked my way up from jail to road and to investigations. Had all different types of training. Became a certified crime scene tech in Georgia when the program, and saw the transition from old school investigative techniques. And as new technologies evolved, DNA came into, so I'm pre-DNA also. And as we started understanding correct procedures and processing of crime scenes, and got to see the new era of what the courts, and when I first started, you couldn't get digital photography into a court. And so a lot of things have changed from the old school to the new school, and all this CSI stuff you see on TV. There's a lot of truth in it. It's just not on the same timeline. And so, and that's what I tried to bring to everyone's audiences, all the other creators out there, that, Kristen's been very nice and allowing me to come out and speak to her community. And I have other creators I do the same with. And it's just an honor to be able to have this impact and let people know that, yes, we can have an impact if we focus in a certain direction.
Exactly. And what I think is interesting, and one of the things that I love about you and Perry both, is that you both are old school. You both have this insight and expertise from before this technology, the modern technology, was there. You guys were, having to do the old-fashioned police work, as they call it, the canvassing, the interviews, talking to people, going out and getting, information, and not just relying on databases and computers and, that kind of technology, which
And that's
I'm
valuable.
sure.
Both of it's valuable. The new technology is used correctly, like with the databases, of being able to, because us as humans, we can only process so many tips, but we can put it in a database, and now we can search that. And have we become too dependent upon some of the technologies, and we've lost that ability to evaluate certain information? And that's something I see in some of the creators, that they have certain skill sets that would have made them excellent investigators. And Kristen, you have that skill set. I look at some of the ways that you look and process certain information, and it's brilliant. And I appreciate that in certain creators. Some creators, not so much. Some they do. But,
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I've always had an eye for investigation. I've always had an eye for mystery and trying to figure things out. And I'm really a Debbie Downer to take to a mystery type movie, because I usually figure it out before the end of the movie. I usually know what's going on. So I'm just going to say that people just are like, you have this intuitive nature kind of thing about it. I don't know. I look at it as more just critical thinker. I try to critically think about things when I'm looking at, especially at cases and stuff like that. Evidence. I've always tried to keep a level head. when I'm looking at a case and not try to get emotionally involved in one idea or theory or another. And that's hard to do because we're human, you know.
Oh,
And
oh,
the whole what's the word I'm looking for? The biases that we all have naturally
of
as
course.
human beings, you know, we have to try to work through those and put those aside when you're looking at a case and you're trying to figure out what may have happened or what's going on, especially if the case is unsolved. But I also try to tell myself that we're not law enforcement and we don't have all of the information, not even close to all the information that law enforcement has. Even though we may think we know a lot of things, we don't know anything compared to what they know.
Oh, no, no, no. And with that, and that will always be the case. But I do believe that there's certain information that can be released on Delphi. Ours says that he believes certain information, and he knows he was a prosecutor at the time. And so he should know above everyone that if there's more evidence to be released, then we should have some of that, because with that spark that one person to step forward that says, okay, that is who it is. And we need to, they need to be put, and justice needs to be gotten for Libby and Abby.
Yeah, no, exactly. I keep thinking I've followed this case since day one. And I've been on it. And I was telling someone the other day, I've got 18 notebooks on this case now to date, 18 full of everything that's happened on this case. And I'm old school when it comes to, I've got a great computer in front of me, but I like to write. I feel better and I remember things if I write them. So I write everything down. And then I can go back and refresh my memory on stuff. And I just keep going back. I feel like I'm on this roller coaster that just is never ending. And I go up and down these hills because one minute I think one thing and then the next minute something happens and I'm like, wow, I don't know. I'm not as confident as I was, here. It's very frustrating. How does that affect you as law enforcement when you're looking at these unsolved cases? How do you handle that?
Well, you have to run whatever position you put yourself in. That, like in law enforcement, there may be more than one theory to run. As an individual, I can only run one theory at a time. You'll just get overwhelmed, and you have to look at what is the evidence telling you that is most likely. What is the highest probability? And that's why, I understand that law enforcement probably has 3 or 4 parallel investigations that as tips come in, they put those tips in certain paths. Is it a drug related tip? Is it a serial killer tip? Is it the catfishing? And they'll put that information in it and run it. And so I can only run one. And do I have a bias right now? Yes, but I can only work that when it gets to Delphi, I can only go down one path. The other information, if it comes in, I put it into the others. And when this one runs and I've run it to the end, then I'll swap immediately over to the next most likely one and run it to the end, hoping that doesn't happen because I've only been involved with Delphi for a few months. And of course, if you saw my computer screen with my folders, you'd think, oh goodness, this is absolutely amazing. But that's how you do it. And then I have them for each of because when I look at a cold case, it comes down to this, that trying to solve a cold case, you're not going to be able to go out there and gather all the best evidence. You have to look at is there a weak link that now exists that didn't exist 20 years ago? Is there an individual that has changed their life? Are they no longer the individual they were 20, 25 years ago? Are they willing to now tell the truth and bring this case to a close? And you have to try to find these individuals either through social media or through the family that says, well, so-and-so spoke to me and said this. And you try to identify that weak link, or you try to identify a piece of evidence that wasn't processed. And that's what I look for. That when these people send me those cases and they send me all that information, that I spend time looking for, is there an individual that may be able to flip? And if they will flip, what does it take to make them flip? And that's our only hope. Like I said, I can't go out there and process and interview everybody from law enforcement, but I can look at who are the most likely people that will have been involved in the case 25, 30 years ago, and what changes have occurred in their life. Have they found religion? Do they now have children? Have they broken off and now they're at opposite poles of their co-defenders, and work on them? And that's how I approach it. So there's no great mystery to it. And the reason I say that is I want everyone out there to understand it. Don't go out there thinking that you're going to be able to go out and do all those interviews. You're not. But try to identify those weak links of people that may have changed their lives. Now, that's my 2 cents, my opinion. It may not make sense, and you may have a far better way of approaching it. I don't know.
No, I think that makes perfect sense, because you can't get all the interviews. There's just no way you're going to be able to talk to all the same people. First of all, we don't even know all the people. That's part of it, I think. It's like we just don't have that information. We don't know everybody that knows about this case. We guess. We have people who have given information and said they have information. Again, it's secondhand. And like you said, you have to go and vet that information that they're giving to try to figure out if it's true or not. And then you have to try to think outside the box. And I keep going back on Delphi to Occam's razor. And I know everybody says, yeah, whatever. But it's usually simple. I know everybody said this case is extremely complicated, and law enforcement has said that and everything. And I'm not trying to say that they're not telling us the truth, but what if they are telling us that to keep us away from what they're doing? I mean, that is a possibility that they've put out there. And maybe it is a little bit more straightforward than we're all thinking. I don't know, because it just seems like there are so many twists and turns in this case. I've never seen a case like this before.
Well, and that's due to the way that we communicate now. And old school, we didn't have that. That when you went into a community, you didn't have where someone could come up with information that they might not have known from the internet because it didn't exist. It was just that these people lived on this dead end road, and there's only so many people there, and whatever information they got either by firsthand knowledge or from their neighbor. It wasn't from that I have a Facebook page and I know thousands of people and have all that input. And so it has changed, and it has had an impact on how investigations are handled.
Yeah, it has. And there's so much information out there. There's so many avenues that you can get information from. We've got people out there that can hack into information and get information and all of that. And it's quite scary sometimes when you think about it. But if it's being used for the greater good, I guess more power to them. But I just go back and forth with what's going on with Delphi right now. And let's get into what you found when you got there. The first questions I have for you is, when you came into Delphi from being in Georgia. I don't know if you've ever been in the rural Midwest kind of corn belt before, for any length of time. But what was your thoughts when you drove into Delphi?
Well, I had been through the Midwest before many, 40 years ago. And so this was my first time back in there in 40 years. I've been to Kentucky, but going above Kentucky, it had been 40 something years. But when I got up there, and I went into Delphi that I was going to approach it as I knew nothing about the community other than this case. And so as soon as we hit within 10 miles of Delphi, I told Mrs. Steve, I said, hit closest gas station, because I had a list of things I wanted to do. And so she hit closest gas station. Marathon popped up, Delphi. And so check that off the list. And then I said, type in Moonon Bridge. And so that I wanted to see, using search engines, how hard it would be to get directions to go to the Moonon Bridge. And Moonon Bridge was like third or fourth stop before we ever got to the actual Freedom Bridge, and which I found interesting. Does that mean that's what happened then? But no. But we went into town and we approached it from the point that trying to gather data of if it is a random person that had no knowledge of the town versus a person that had knowledge of the town. And so that's how we approached it. And met some really nice people. Absolutely beautiful town. The isolation of the trails was not what I thought it was. It totally changed my opinion on so many different levels of what I thought occurred. And
explain that if you can.
Some of it I can, some of it I can't, because we're working those other avenues. But of looking at, and a lot of your community may have already seen my terrain videos about the ease of being able to get to where the victims of Libby and Abby, where they were murdered at.
If you want to bring that up, you can use the present, and you can bring that up and show them if you want.
No, I'll close down the internet.
Okay.
If I start pushing buttons,
Uh-oh.
Yeah. You don't want me to lock you out. I'm sure that there's people out there that says if he starts touching buttons, just close them down. But on those terrain videos and content I created, I did that for the fact that when I first got to the crime scene and I stood there and I said, this isn't what I've envisioned. I thought it was gentle paths, gentle rolling hills, because as you drive across the Midwest, everything's flat. You think that these cornfields that you can look across for 10 miles is just all flatland. And I never realized that there was this steep of embankments, creeks that were that deep, and that you had almost these canyon-like features. And so that shocked me. And when I stood there where the Libby and Abby were discovered, and I stared at that bluff wall, and I looked around and I saw those high, almost like standing in a bowl, it changed my opinion of what directions the predator, the killer, the psychopath, and what would have drove Libby and Abby to take that direction. And so it changed my opinion a lot on that. And I try to convey that information, but it's still just my opinion. Doesn't mean that my opinion carries any more weight than anyone else.
Did you see the deer trail that is right before you get onto the bridge on your left?
We walked that.
Okay, and
Right.
that's the one that goes straight down to the crime scene.
Oh, and you couldn't have said it better. Straight down.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
You,
it's straight down.
yeah, you think when I thought it was going, and before, I'm walking out there and I'm, Mrs. Steve and Randy and um, uh, Mr. Purdue RN, and we're walking at, and along with our others, and I'm over there next to the creek looking down this bluff, and then we split apart. I'm getting a little echo now. Is that me or you?
Must be you because I don't have an echo.
Okay. It may just be my volume part. Let me turn it down a little bit. All right. You still hear me?
Uh-huh.
Okay. But as I'm walking along that bluff and looking down, and then two of our group just disappears over the horizon, and Mrs. Steve and Randy and Mr. RN or Purdue RN, they decide to go back, and I look off this and I say, as someone who has had to pursue people in my law enforcement career into areas like this, it's not an area that you could easily control individuals. That you to maintain actual physical control on steep embankments is extremely hard, handcuff or otherwise. And so that changed my opinion of if he had control of them and brought them in a certain way back across the bridge and down that route, that is not a likely, that's not the easiest way across. Not saying it didn't happen, but it's something that, from my perspective, that I had to put in my checklist. And so, like I said, if I hadn't ever been there, I would have thought that, yes, you could just walk down that and along the creek and went down there easily. Nope. Because once you go down that ravine, you're stuck at the bottom of the ravine. You have to climb a embankment to get back around the a little ridge ending to get to where the girls' bodies were located.
Guys, just for you guys know in the chat, sometimes I'm using StreamYard to speak with Steve. So there's a delay from StreamYard to YouTube. Sometimes that can cause that echo. And if he had YouTube open as well, that would, but I don't think he does. So yeah, that's probably why it stopped. It's just funny sometimes when you're using a third party and you're not actually streaming directly through YouTube. So that's what's going on. I also want to let everybody know in the chat, because I saw there was a lot of conversation going on. Please make sure you're being respectful of our guests and listening to what he's having to say. And also, could you guys, if you have questions that you would like me to ask him, I will be more than happy to. And I'm going to be starring those on my end, and we'll ask them at the end. Okay. So just feel free to put your questions for Steve or me, whatever, in the chat. Okay. I appreciate it, you guys. Thank you so much. I want to know, Steve, about when you were down at the crime scene and you were standing there looking around and you looked at the creek. Did you walk over by the creek from the crime scene?
Yes, I had our guide who had got permission and knew and said that they'd been there multiple times that led us in. They showed us over to the creek and that this is where one of the investigators' pictures was made. So I looked down there, and part of that embankment, I couldn't have got up. But some of that embankment was, while steep, it was negotiable. And you could get up. You may not be able to get up walking, but you could get up all fours. It was, still steep in certain parts. Don't know exactly. Well, I don't have the information of what the photographs that law enforcement has. I wish I did, but we don't have that. So there's some parts that they could have got access up the bank, and then some parts they couldn't have.
Well, I was just thinking because I've seen a lot of boots on the ground videos over the years that were made by content creators that actually visited the area. And Hoosier Cold Case did an absolute excellent series of it. And I think those banks at some of the points around where the crime scene is located are 7 feet. I mean, easily from the creek bed to the top of that bank to get up into that area of the crime scene. And I know, like you said, there are some areas like the sandbar area, I think down farther, that big sandbar, you can kind of walk up and you have to climb. I mean, it's not easy. There are trees, I think you have to pull yourself along to get even up in there. But it's not impossible, but it certainly doesn't it make you, or didn't it make you think differently about Bridge Guy, and why would he put that obstacle in his path on
And that's
purpose?
something I don't think that he put there. I think that's something the girls chose.
And see, now that's where I was going with that, because I don't think his intent was to lead them back across the creek.
No, I think that once they
I
got
think-
down, if you go by the FBI audio and the transcripts, they say that video is 43 seconds long or something like that.
Yep.
And at the end of it, he says down the hill. The steepness and of that is that, and the importance of that statement is that, is it possible for him to get down that first hill in 43 seconds from where he was at on the bridge and mean to go down another hill? I don't think so. Unless he fell off that or everybody fell down. But I don't think that's the case. I think that it was mentioned at the top of that first, at the end of the bridge, to go down that first intent hill. And you don't abduct people. If he was there just to kill them, drop off the edge of the railroad bed, kill them under the bridge, go on about it. If that was the main focus. I think the main focus, my personal opinion, is it was abduction. That's what it was going, original thing was abduction. Where it was going to go, because a lot of abductions end in the same way.
Sure.
But I think.
Yeah, where was he going to take them? But it wasn't to keep them there, right there where they were at. He wanted to take them somewhere.
Yes, and I believe for that to occur, to say go down the hill means that you're taking them to. If you're taking them to another area, you gotta have a vehicle.
The private drive.
Yep. And so that's where it's looking like we're going. I've got to answer a lot of questions. Doesn't mean that's what happened.
Sure.
But I mean, we have to look heavily at that and give it fair weight.
It makes so much sense, because I've often thought that they ran away to get away, which is probably what led in their demise, because at that point it was, we have to protect our, we, whoever it is, had to protect their identity. And they knew if anybody got away and was able to get to someone, they were in big trouble, and whatever this might turn out to be would explode. So that's why the girls ended up having what happened to them happen to them. And I thank you, Willow Rain, for joining. I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much. I just, I've often thought that. So I'm glad to hear you say that, because I often wondered what person in their right mind in February in the Midwest is going to try to march somebody across a knee-deep creek that's going to be cold. And, I just didn't see that happening, I guess.
No. And like I said, it's just, that was my impression. That's my first impression, but there's other possibilities that could also occur, but that's my first impression of what, that they got down there, because we have to figure out and have to look at, okay, they go down the hill and now they decide to run. What was the trigger to make them run? What did they see? What scared them so bad that they would run through a creek? And,
right.
And that they knew, And I don't think, I mean, it still could be part of this psychopath's fantasy that I'm going to lead these children through a wooded area and commit a murder. But you have to have extreme knowledge of the area if that's part of your fantasy.
Yeah, exactly. It gives you a whole different perspective on the case, though, after you're there, doesn't it?
It did. It changed my opinion to a whole new thing. And as I speak with some of my other professional friends, that when we look at it, that, you know, we have to debate the issues of why.
Yeah. And you know, it's like one thing, you know, Faxx always says you've got to know the motive. If you know the motive of what was going on here, it's going to point you in the right direction to Bridge Guy. And I think that's been one of the biggest questions that's bounced around out there all these years, because we've heard all different kinds of motive. And if we could dial down and really dial down what the motive was, I think we would be so much closer.
And you can, but, you know, and even then with the motive, you know, individuals can have more than one motive. And that throws a monkey wrench in it, that you have an individual that starts out doing one thing and then the motive changes. You know, you can have robberies that evolve into different types of assaults. And so, you know, there's a lot of different things that certain individuals out there, that there may be more than one motive.
Yeah, for sure. And the motive may have changed based upon what happened.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've often thought,
the motivation, which is different than the motive, that did something occur? Did the flight change that, okay, we're not going to be able to do an abduction and transport them somewhere else, and I've got to go over there for self-preservation, and then we get in that I can't control them to get them back so that I can transport them. So the only possibility I have now is I have to murder them. And you know, all of this is arguments and debates that will be, you know, in speculation, because we don't know. And but we have to look at these and try to weigh out what did happen, when did it happen, and how it happened.
Yeah, and you know, if he is the psychopath that we think he is, you know, there could have been a number of different things that triggered him into rage by what may have gone on. If he had a specific plan and everything was going to plan, and then suddenly something happened that caused that plan to go awry, that could have sent him into a red sense of rage that caused everything that came about, because his plan was thwarted, and that can make them absolutely lose their minds. Not that they've in their right mind to begin with, but you know what I mean.
But the control that you can hear, I mean, when you listen to Bridge Guy's voice, it's not a screaming, hollering, commanding voice. It's one that's in absolute control at that point. Now, did that change? And at what point did it change? What triggered him go from a calm, controlling voice into whatever type of psychopath he turned into? That not only did he murder one innocent victim, that he decides that he's going to murder two, which is you know, you might accidentally be fighting with a victim, and you're totally, I mean, not saying that you accidentally murder someone because you're there to commit a crime, but during a crime, there is death occurs. That doesn't mean that you have to go and kill again. This animal did.
Exactly. Exactly. Right.
He's an extreme threat to society.
Yeah, most definitely. And he's been walking free for 6 years. And we don't know what else he's done prior to this, or what he's still, I mean, we know what he's capable of because we've seen it. And I agree with you. This person needs to be off the street forever, forever and ever. So just hang on, guys, because I am getting all of your comments starred. So we will definitely ask the questions. Just keep, if you're, as you're going along and then we're talking, just keep putting those questions in the chat and we'll get to them. And the ones that Steve feels comfortable answering, he will answer. Okay. So when you were looking at the terrain and you did some of your experiments, talk to us about some of the things that you did at night, because I found those fascinating when I watched your live stream and you were talking about some of the things that you were, the controls and the kinds of things that you were doing.
Well, one of the biggest things that we
Experiment with the pings and some of the idea of where this stuff was and where this stuff happened.
Well, one of the controls test was designed on Faxx has sent me a email or text. I can't remember. But anyway, he sent me and he said something about the pings and the phone coordinates and the time frame wasn't right. And so, and he said, look into it. And I said, okay. So I tried to figure out how could I with, because I can't contact AT&T and say, hey, I want you to ping phones. But luckily if you have everything turned on, you can do something very similar on Find My Phone. And so I decided that that's what Mrs. Steve and I would do. So we practiced that here before we went to Indiana. And so we got everything. We knew how it worked. And so we got to Indiana and we did some daylight testing on pinging. And so then we went back. We put 1,800 miles of car travel in 5 days. We rode constantly. And what time we were in the car, we were out walking, doing tests, doing everything that we could to get as much off our checklist as possible. But anyway, we had planned to meet with our guide that had spoke to and assumed all the getting the abilities for us to visit where we visited, that we met with them and met with Randy and talked to them, and they gave us a tour of the place and took us down that path that you was talking about to the left where the deer path was before crossing the bridge. And so we did all that. And Mrs. Steve, Randy, and Mr. Purdue RN, they decided to go back to the parking lot, which I'm so glad they did, because I continued on with the other group and went to the crime scene. And for whatever reason, Mrs. Steve decided on her own to continue the ping test, because we hadn't planned that part. And while we were down there, she did a ping test and showed Randy and Mr. Purdue the issue. And so we're at dinner, and while we're at dinner, Randy looks at me and says, "You were 3.8 miles away," which is impossibility from the Freedom Village to the crime scene isn't 3.8 miles. And so I'm staring at him in a 1,000-yard stare, and this is going through my mind. And I look at Mrs. Steve and I ask her, and she says, "Yes, that's what it said." I said, "Well, we got to go back and do some testing." And we were short, and which led, I was going to do some low light testing anyway. I just wasn't going to do it that night. And so we went back, and the rest is history. They stayed in the cemetery, and I told them we had set up a plan of pinging me every 30 seconds to every minute. And I had walkie-talkies that we had done walkie-talkie communications test to see what areas you could communicate with walkie-talkies in case BG was working with others with walkie-talkies. And so we had done those tests and still had the walkie-talkies operable. And so I communicated with it, checked the phone. Only one time during my whole transition of going through those woods, and I didn't take a lot. I wanted to walk those woods in total darkness with no light, because it's a different environment. For people that have done land navigation in total darkness, with no moon, cloud cover. It's different than a bright moonlit night or daylight. And so I wanted to walk those wood and go to the crime scene in those conditions. So I make it down there and had a walking stick, thank goodness. If you ever do land navigation or any navigation, carry a walking stick. It'll keep you from killing yourself.
I'm so glad you did not fall that night. When you said that you almost fell backwards, I just almost lost my breath because I was like, no, we need him. We don't want anything to happen to him. I'm sure Mrs. Steve did not want to hear that story.
But even going down that ravine, and I took the big deep ravine that leads you straight down to the creek, which is the easiest path from the cemetery.
Okay.
And of course, if you go over to Logan's and directly behind his house and come in, there's far easier paths, but that's a long way around and it's more gentle, but it's still extremely hazardous and extremely steep. I mean, you can watch the news crew and see them that it's easy coming down and it's relatively easy going back up on the grade, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go straight from the cemetery because that's the most direct route, and more likely that would have been either or which way you would go. And so I was able to walk that ravine. And like I said, there's holes in those ravines that are full of leaves. And I went up to my hip three times. Just all of a sudden you stepped and there'd be no void. And, but anyway, I got down to the creek unhurt. And then I started doing, and the whole time I was doing that, I would drop down 30 feet in elevation or 10 or 15 feet in elevation, and I'd contact back and we would check the pings. And that's where all this variables came up that, you know, I'd be 0.3 of a mile away and it says I'm 90 feet from the car. And then 3 of the pings says I was in the middle of the creek. Never happened. You know, I'm 50, 100 yards inland and it says I'm standing in the middle of the creek.
And you know what's amazing about that, Steve, is all of that pinging that you guys were doing in that experiment. This is probably on new updated cell towers from 2017. These towers that you guys were pinging off of probably had updates made to them since 2017. So you can imagine if it's that off now, how much it would have been off then.
Well, that's interesting. Mrs. Steve being stationary in the car at the highest point up there, not at the highest point of the cemetery, but in that back corner, she could ping her phone and like I said, we only lost, one time did I lose all bars. Other times I always had one bar and I could contact her by phone still, but sometimes it was breaking up. It wasn't real clear, but you could still make phone calls because we did that too. And, but sometimes it would show that when we first got there, she pinged my phone. She's in the back seat. I'm in the front seat. She pings my phone and it says that I'm within 5 miles. It doesn't show that I'm 4 feet away from her. And, which I almost gave up then. I said, well, there's not much need, you know, but I walked away from the car and did it again. And it pinged me correctly. And I said, okay, so let's go. And then when I got down there and moving around and was coming back, that, you know, sometimes it says I was 5.8 miles away or I was just within a circle, but they didn't have any idea where I was at. And then she would relay to me that you're in the middle of the creek, and which I never went into the creek on that one. And I said, no, that's not true. And so as I worked my way back up that embankment is where I probably came up in one of the steepest grades that you could come up. I didn't design, I didn't choose that. It just happened where I was at. And that's where I almost was going down to the creek. But like I said, I had a good walking, climbing stick and was able to get out.
That's awesome that you did. Did you, by any chance, did you guys go around and drive onto the private drive at all?
No, and ran out of time. And,
okay.
But one of the Webbers was coming up the drive. I assume it's one of the Webbers. There's somebody on the drive. And they knew that we were coming to be there that day. And which was very fortuitous for us that we're standing there and I'm looking and I see a vehicle coming up the driveway. Absolutely, even in this heavy foliage this time of year, it was a clear line of sight. I would have never known that if that hadn't occurred.
Now, if you were, I know it's hard to tell because you were there when there's foliage everywhere, and of course in February there isn't any, because all of the trees have lost their leaves, all the bushes have lost their leaves, and everything, all of the underbrush and stuff is just kind of there, but you can still see through it. So you tell me, when you got on that path that was the path that you took down to the crime scene, as you said, the path that was treacherous, that goes straight to the crime scene. When you first get on that and you stand there, you can see everything happening on the bridge, can you not? Through the trees.
I don't know. I'm gonna go back when it's no. From where it happened at, there's a ridge ending. It comes out to the creek. If they're in there, until that foliage is off,
not from there, but from up at the top, when you first get on that path and say you walk in there 15 feet or so, you can stand there in those trees and in that area and see everything that's happening on the bridge. So in other words, if somebody was standing there, they would have been able to see the girls on the bridge taking photos, talking, doing whatever.
You're talking about if they're on the walking path to the end of the bridge.
If they're on that walking path, that deer path that goes off of right before you get to the bridge.
Oh,
if
yes,
the bridge
yes.
guy
if
or
there's
somebody,
no foliage, yes, you could stay up. Yes, absolutely. You could, with no foliage, you could actually, even now, because the foliage line was pretty high, you could go in there 50 or 100 yards and see anybody on the trail now.
Wow. That's interesting. Hey, Louisa, thank you again so much, my dear, for your contribution tonight. So appreciative. Thank you. That's really interesting because I think it's very, very interesting to know that he could have been anywhere or they could have been anywhere watching them.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that we have. There's a lot of things like we have gleaned from the search warrant and things like that. But all the language is important. And they talk about him following them on the trail. And, it doesn't really talk much about, they don't really talk about the bridge. And I just thought that was interesting as well. And I just was wondering where he might have been, where he came out at. And
like I said, there's so many different possibilities of it. He may have never even, we have that one witness that says at the Freedom Bridge at a certain time, she called in the description of bridge guy before anyone knew. So I believe, and we know he crossed the bridge at least once. Could he have crossed the bridge multiple times? Yes.
Yeah. I was wondering that very, very thing, if there's a possibility that there was more crossing of that bridge than just the one time. That's interesting, though. Well, I'm glad that you're talking about going back. Do you have any idea when you're going to go back?
The next time I go back, there won't be any leaves. So I'll have that comparison.
Good. That's good to know that you're going to go back with that setup. It'll be colder and there won't be any leaves. And
I don't know how much colder it can get. That one morning we got it when we walked, because I walked all the way from the bridge to town to the library to see, because when you look at the maps, it shows there's a trail system.
Yep.
They don't show that some of those trails is surface streets and sidewalks that are not marked.
Yep. I've seen that.
That was very revealing to us.
And you walked the trail all the way back to town to Riley Park, right? From the south end of the bridge?
No, we could have, but what happened was that we walked the trail to the first parking lot. After you from the Freedom Bridge, there's a very nice trail that leads in towards town
Okay.
that you can go about, I don't know, maybe a half a mile or 3/4 mile, and it goes to a parking lot. But there's the old railroad that continues into the woods. So I said, I want to go that way. I want to see what's in the woods. And so we went that way and dropped off on another street over there because there's a bridge that's missing. And so we got on that back street, and then we walked into town and walked to the backside of Riley Creek and went up to the library. But I mean, that was like I guess a 45 to an hour walk. It wasn't like it was a 15-minute walk. When Ives says that you can do it in 15 minutes or 20 minutes, that's just, he may be able to do it. I can't do it.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I thought about that too. And I thought, man, you must be a speed walker to be able to do it that fast. I didn't think that you could walk there that fast at all. I think the drive is probably even quicker than that, but because it's not that far from town, but I don't know. I know a lot of people have a lot of different theories and a lot of different, ideas. Do you feel now more comfortable? I mean, I know you've had time to think about it because you've been home for a while. And you said things really changed, different ideas for you being there and seeing everything and doing the experiments that you did. Has that changed your complete idea of how this crime may have occurred?
No, not
Okay.
totally, but it does influence it.
Okay. I just wondered if it completely made you like say, wow, I had no clue. I mean,
Oh, no, I did say that. I had misinterpreted in my mind's eye. I had misinterpreted that transition from the cemetery down to the creek. I was totally 100% that, because people said the non-secular stuff could have just been something they gathered at the cemetery.
Cemetery.
To the crime scene.
No. It's like,
Is it possible? Yes, but highly unlikely.
isn't it like 80 feet? Like it's like a straight up, I mean, it's really, really, really steep.
You can do it, and we did. We walked almost directly up that hill. It's probably, at least I've got it on my charts. It's like right around 20 something to 30 something degree angle, which is a pretty steep incline. And it's like walking up a slide. If you walk up a slide, that's what it is. That's probably about the closest I can get to telling you. It's like walking off the face of a slide that's 100 yards wide, and the first rim going straight towards the cemetery from where the girls, I think it was somewhere around 60 feet.
Yeah.
Of where that little ridge is, and then from that first ridge on up to the cemetery is another 20 feet. And then up to going to Logan's house is another 10 feet. I think Logan's house is like 90 feet above what the creek level is.
Yeah. I watched the videos of Ron Logan walking up that hill, that steep hill, with reporters and his dog. I mean, he goes up that hill like it's just there.
Yeah.
He just goes up that hill.
Yeah.
And, and I thought, well, he's been up and down that hill probably enough because he lives there, obviously. And it's different when you're not doing that terrain on a regular basis, or you're not doing hill climbs. You know what I mean? It's different.
But you can listen to him and you can hear that he is, I don't know if it's due to the cold but he is winded at certain parts of some of those interviews.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sure it was taxing. No, excuse me. No doubt about it that had to be taxing on his heart, especially at his age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Molly put 30 feet. No, it was 90 feet. Ron Logan's house is 90 feet, over 1,400 feet line of sight 90 feet higher.
So it's 90 feet higher. His house is 90 feet higher than the creek,
Over
1,400
1,400 feet.
and 1,400 feet away from the creek, right?
But some of it's gentle. But then once you get to a certain point, the elevation change is drastic.
Yeah. And I remember when you were talking on your live about that, and you were talking about how you were looking at all the soybean and cornfields and, soybean fields and stuff around there. And all of a sudden here was this wooded, beautiful area or whatever. And that's so common, excuse me, around here, because that was all made by that creek, Deer Creek. That's all made by that water. It did that, over time. And and they have those, we have them all over the place.
And that's what I'm saying. If you was out in a dry, arid place, you look at that like a box canyon.
Oh yeah.
It's no, I thought, man, there couldn't have been a worse, it's like a horror movie, that the selection of which way they ran was absolutely one of the worst directions. And they didn't know. Who would know?
Right. Well, I just think that in my opinion, the girls ran to the area they were trying to get back to where they were dropped off, and they knew they couldn't go back across the bridge because he was probably between them and the bridge. So they went the only way that they felt they could go. Sadly.
There's so many possibilities that we, like I said, there's going to be a lot of debate, and a lot of people are going to question mine. I'm speculating. I don't know. I'm just having to go from what my career has taught me.
Sure.
And pick one choice and work that angle. I can't work all the angles. I can only work one at a time. Will I work all of them eventually? I hope I don't have to. I hope it's solved before then. But I'll work as many angles as I can, that once I run one of them down, I'll go to the next one.
My really good friend, Real GonZo, is in here, and he says that elevation, he's been there with Perry. He went with Faxx about a month and a half ago. And he says the elevation change is drastic. The vantage points from the scene are interesting, and you can see out, but nobody can see in. And he said that that's true.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I was impressed when I saw it, and it was very disturbing to see and realize exactly what transpired there.
Yeah, exactly. And it just leads me, obviously, to believe that this person was definitely familiar with the location, was familiar with that area. Absolutely. In my opinion, there's just, I just can't see it being an outsider that had never been there before. I just don't think he would have found it, for one. And it's so much of a straight line now. When you go, you saw that they redid the trail, so it goes straight from the parking lot straight to the bridge. It wasn't like that in 2017. In 2017, you were walking on this trail that was basically like what am I trying to say? It's like
it had some undergrowth on it.
Yeah, it had undergrowth on it.
It had some undergrowth.
Yeah. And then you got to this point on the trail where you had to go you took a left, and you had to walk through this fenced area, and then you would go back around, and you were actually in the woods, closer to the fence line of the neighbors or houses or whatever. And you'd have to walk through the woods and come back out onto the trail to actually get to the bridge. Yeah. It wasn't a straight line like it is now. They did that when they redid the actual trail system just a couple summers ago, or last summer when they did it. Yeah. But yeah, I know from my own experience that it makes a difference when you're in that whole area and that whole vicinity of how it just makes you feel, the emotion of it, knowing what transpired there, all of it, it just leaves you with, to me, with a very frightened and horrific feeling of fear
In
of
law
what they
enforcement, we
must
do
have
this
felt.
every day. When you go to a crime scene, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at, okay, why are we here? What made you end up here? And you work back. You know, what driving force made this? You know, whatever is your last stand? Is it where you was caught? What events led you here? Or, you know, what meetings or abductions, and there's just so many variables.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I'm really glad to hear that you're going to go back, though. Um, I know you found that out when you were there. There's just too much to, there's so much you want to do and so much you want to see in it, and you really can't get it all done in a day. Did
No.
you happen to go to Peru at all?
Yes.
What was your thoughts on the Wabash? Did you look at the river?
Yeah, we went there, walked out on the walkway,
Uh-huh.
took some pictures, and looked at that. And now it was considerably, it's probably 3 or 4 feet higher than what it was when they were searching it. I've got to check the river flow. I got the dates and time, and but it appeared to be much higher than what the search time period was. I don't know until I check the data if that's just seasonal or not. But
I heard that they diminished the flow while they were searching. That's what I've heard.
Mhm.
So I don't know
And
how they do that or where they do that at upstream or whatever, but they lowered the level. We haven't had a ton of rain that would cause that to go that high. They have upstream, I think. There's been a lot up north, so it's very possible. But I just wondered what you thought of it and
no, I was
of that
impressed with it.
area.
When we rode by the house, didn't have time to get to. I wanted to get out to North Country Club,
Uh-huh.
and we just ran out of time. I've got one more family. I got to go up there and work another code case, and if the weather breaks this winter, I'll do it this winter. If I have to wait until the spring, I hope not. But I've got other things I've got to work in the southeast this winter anyway, so I've got plenty to do.
Sounds like you need another Steve.
Actually, I've already contacted one or two.
I was just gonna say, I would not expect that you wouldn't, because man, you don't want to wear yourself too thin with everything that you're doing, but I understand that there's a lot going on.
Well,
So with your experiments that you were doing at home, were you able to do any of that at all, or are you going to talk about that later on when you were in Delphi? Did you do any other experiments outside while you were there?
yeah, I got. I wanted to see what type of where the Libby and Abby were, and what underbrush and the creek flat that they were on, where those coordinates point you. And so I wanted to see what that was, so I could come back and do some low light. I've got some more tests to do because I want to put articles of clothing, my dummies, in a location, and as the light fades, I'll be able to tell you at what point a person will disappear at 25 feet.
Okay.
Or at 50 feet or 100
Sure.
feet or 300 feet, because as light decreases in the evening, your vision changes. And so there's plenty of tests I can do here in Georgia, because the light doesn't change. It may just be a little bit more different environment, but I didn't have time to do it out there.
Okay. Well, that makes sense for sure. I'm going to go, we got quite a few questions, so I'm going to go ahead and get started on them.
Sure.
Oops. Mrs. Dog Lover said, "Hey, Kristen and Steve, I've only been into true crime for the last 6 months, and I've quickly figured out who the good guys are. Thank you."
Thank you.
That is so nice to hear.
I'm hoping she considers us, or me.
Oh, I
And you,
know. I see her in your lives. I know she does. And I'm thrilled to hear that
oh,
because
I'm appreciative of all the support. I mean,
yeah, I
very,
am
very
too.
fortunate, great community.
Billy Joe and the mother are in trouble and they're going to be held responsible. Talking about baby Quentin.
Oh, okay.
And let's see. Sierra Gerald's asked, Mr. Steve, you have put an eye and ears on the Delphi case. You and Kristen are both excellent at what you give.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you very much. I appreciate it. I love having Steve on. I've heard that the two of us do really good together back and forth. And I love it. Like I said, I could talk to him for hours and just drive him crazy with questions. Let's see. Sees through at Steve. Will law enforcement care what is being said online about the Delphi case, or will they never release anything more unless they need help on it? Did you ever have to work with the media?
Law enforcement has a certain strategy, as Doug Carter says. The media is a strong tool that you can do certain things at certain times and releases. They now have the internet and web sleuths and true crime that they can use. And when are they using it and when they're not using it, I have no idea. Only they know what that strategy is and how they use it. And so, you know, they will, if there's certain information they don't want out that is released, they'll have to try to find the leak of that, of the source of that leak and
Sure.
control it and deal with it harshly. Because if there's information, you know, what Murder Sheet says is that they always clear it through law enforcement. I want to know who that law enforcement officer is that clears it.
So do I.
That will answer a lot for me. Who
That
is it?
that person needs to be reprimanded.
Well,
That's just
either
my
that
opinion.
or it's a controlled thing, and I don't know. I mean, are you just talking to some old retired guy like me, and
Right.
he's
No,
saying, "Oh,
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
then you're doing you're doing an injustice if that's the case."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. Deb says, she said, absolutely, Kristen. There are many things that I have been told that I will never release until the person tells me to. That's called integrity. You know, you got to have integrity. If you're dealing with this case, I know SD talked about it earlier, what type of person is going to talk to a creator before they talk to law enforcement. But there's a lot of reasons why people don't feel comfortable with going to law enforcement. And I'm telling you what, I always send them there when they come through me. They may tell me something. I hold it in confidence. I may put them in contact with whether it be Steve or whether it's Faxx. I will tell them, I will give them both. Here, these are gentlemen that have extreme experience in law enforcement. They'll know exactly how to help you. And that's what I do. It's the only way to be, in my opinion. But yeah, I definitely feel that way. I'm sure, like Steve's talked about it already, as how he handles it. It needs to go to law enforcement and the tip line.
I got to meet Deb. We had dinner. She came over to the family that was hosting myself and Mrs. Steve, and I got to meet Deb and her husband. And the intimidation factor I felt sitting at that table, because I'm looking around at engineers and people with medical backgrounds and just the education that those people had. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, I don't know which one of these people is the smartest one in the room, because they're all brilliant. And which I wish I could have just sat there and talked to them for days. And because it was very humbling, and I appreciate how nice they were to us and everyone up there. It was like I said,
I'm so glad you had that great experience, and Deb
I
is
did.
wonderful. I've not had the pleasure to meet her yet. I hope to one day. She is extremely intelligent.
She
and
is.
very intelligent.
She's tiny.
Yeah, she's tiny.
Yeah.
But she's mighty.
Oh, yes, she
She
is.
might be tiny, but she's
Yeah.
mighty.
Well, now, she's tiny to me, but I'm a big fella.
So anyway, I thought that was interesting. Louisa says, I agree with you, Kristen. I did that before, gave information about my life to someone and they twisted it on me. I know the feeling. Yeah, it happens. It definitely happens. Danger Dave said, Steve, do you believe that more than one murder weapon was used in the Delphi murder? Hence the reason they, for example, law enforcement hasn't released cause of death.
It depends on definition of used. You can use many weapons for many different things, from controlling to actual inflicting harm. Yes, I believe there's more than one weapon used in controlling, but maybe a different weapon used in the murder of.
Okay. I think we're on the same page with that. Sierra said she has horrible nightmares from Delphi and Flora. She wakes up and writes them down just to see if they get solved, how close or not they are, her nightmares, to what happens. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I've had dreams about the case, so I understand. Louisa said, Kristen, does your guest believe they have a suspect in the Delphi murder?
Every angle that they're working, they're going to be working towards a suspect. Some of the suspects would be, of course, if you're looking at the catfishing, you know who you're looking at that has knowledge of or possibly exactly who BG is. If you're looking at a random serial killer, you may not, but you're still looking down that line. If you're looking at different angles of what possible motivation was, in some of those cases, there may be other people that they're looking at. So yes, I believe they do have suspects. Law enforcement, we're just human. Some of us are going to be biased and have and be looking at certain individuals, and sometimes those guys can't ever get away from being non-biased. We've seen examples of that where some of the FBI agents are still, it's this person, no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yep.
Are they correct? Don't know.
Yep. I think that there was a lot of that in the early days of Delphi. And I think it's very apparent that there was a lot of trouble between jurisdictions. One felt one way, another felt some other way. And that's why we may have ended up with two sketches at two different times. I really firmly believe that's possible. Let's see. SD said, why wouldn't they have run straight to Weber's house rather than agree to go down the hill and then attempt to escape across the creek? Any chance the killer marched them back over the bridge?
There's all different types of possibilities, but being exposed out in the open, that is not, if you go by what the FBI had in the transcript, they say that from the start of the video till the 43 seconds at the end of it, he says, go down the hill. If that is true and that is accurate, going down the hill takes out, doesn't mean that we're hearing it at the exact time that he says it. I just don't know. But if you run the video from the time that he says and he's walking towards them to the end of that in 43 seconds, because you can't get all the way over to the other side of the bridge in 43 seconds.
Right.
So you have to be at one end of the bridge for it to be said, go down the hill. And that's going to be the closest point.
Exactly.
Now, that's just my reasoning, but I believe that they never crossed back over the bridge.
SP74 said, and Steve should be commended for actually asking permission of the landowners most just trespass.
Yep.
And I agree with that 100%.
I had asked my guide, who said that they had all the responsibility and they cleared everything and said, we'll take responsibility. And they had talked to some of the Webbers and got that done. And she had been on to the Logan property multiple times. And so I was so glad to have them, because I wouldn't have had access otherwise.
Right. And that's just awesome that they did that. I think most landowners are not going to, when they know why you're there and what you're trying to do, they're not going to keep you from doing it as long as you ask first.
Yeah.
It's when you
I
just,
had actually I went to Logan's house and knocked twice. And one time the vehicle was there, one time not, but never got anyone to come to the door. But that was before I met with the guide.
yeah. John says, hard to picture them going down that hill without some kind of stumbling or falling.
Yeah, that's reasonable. I mean, I agree. You know, it's easier to go down the hill than come up the hill. I know because you do slide at points. It's like I said, it's like walking on a slide.
Oh yeah, it's definitely slippery slope. Melissa says, Steve, do you think it was someone high up that was involved in their murders? And if it is connected to Evansdale?
There's a lot of similarities to Evansdale. If it is a serial killer, then of course it's possible. If it's the catfishing, no, I don't think it's, but I mean, it's just like I said, it's which one do you go after first? There's more evidence pointing towards the catfishing, and so I have to go with the most likely.
Right. Steve, in the steeper parts where there were there roots, branches, limbs that you could hold on to help pull yourself up? Or would one person reaching back be able to help pull another person up?
When I came up that hill that night, it was all I could do to get up that hill. But I mean, I'm only being able to see 4 or 5 feet in front of me. I mean, it's extremely dark. And I had that walking stick, and sometimes I'd have to, but you're right. There was roots, there was small trees the size of my wrist, and that almost like going up a ladder. There was a time or two, like when I almost flipped over backwards, I was in a void that had no limbs or no little trees growing. So I had about 10 or 15 foot area that I had to climb that didn't have that. And so as I was taking the climbing or the walking stick out and replanting it, that's when I was so close going over backwards.
Ugh,
It was that teeter totter that
this isn't happening. This isn't going to be good. John wants to know, Kristen, does Steve have any theory of the possible motive?
I do, but I can't release it for the fact I don't want to influence anyone that would have, because there's so much responsibility that if you tell them motive or person of interest, that you may take away from the one person that says that values my opinion, that has someone that they would call in. So I just don't. As I develop and as we discuss this, me and the other professionals, we're not going to ever relay that information until BG's and
I totally respect that. I guess I get asked all the time, do I have a POI? And I don't feel comfortable in giving a POI simply because I don't know enough. I don't have enough information from what law enforcement knows to have a good POI in this case. So that's where I'm at on that subject. Let's see. This'll do nicely said, do you think if the girls did scream, would the sound be directed away with the steep terrain, or would it have been muffled?
And that is a very good observation, because that was one of my considerations when I was standing there, that there had been mention that someone at the cemetery was working. That bluff wall would have blocked, I believe, a high percentage of any volume that would have been able to reach the cemetery, because it would have been straight up, and sound waves only, they travel until they hit a block, and then they either bounce back or they continue. It's not like they wrap around things.
Right.
And so one direction that you may have been able to hear if they had yelled, and the only direction would have been towards the Weber household.
Right. Molly said, Kristen or Steve, I think Faxx said something like, stop looking at how and look at why. And that leads you to the guilty party. Hopefully I don't have those reversed. Yeah, he basically told us motive would bring us to the killer.
Yeah. And if you do have motive, but sometimes
Yeah.
you don't
Sometimes
need it.
you don't
You don't
have
have to have it.
motive.
And you'll never know it.
You'll never know
even
the motive.
when you have
Exactly.
the killer, sometimes they never tell you why.
Yeah. And that's got to be so frustrating for the families to not know what motivated this horrific thing to happen to their loved one. SD said, or if it was a cold, calculated abduction, maybe the killings were done just as a means of eliminating living victims that could put him in prison. And it was not rage-filled at all.
Possible.
And that's very possible.
Yeah.
Charlie 883 said, to me, down the hill sounds like an answer to a question, meaning the girls could have asked where he expected them or what he expected them to do. And he states down the hill. That could explain the seemingly calm nature.
Yes. But calm nature for someone conducting or committing an abduction is telling in and of itself.
Yes, exactly.
Kidnapping is serious.
I was just going to say, this person is doing a very heinous crime in kidnapping someone and children especially. And to be that calm and collected says a lot about the psyche of that person.
Yeah. That's just my opinion, but that's what I thought.
Oh, yeah. I definitely feel that way just from the psychology background that I have. I definitely feel that way. Ken Maines, SD said, Ken Maines has theorized that it was an abduction gone wrong as well. Abduction for what, though? Personal deviant, trafficking, or something else? I think that's the big question, right? I mean,
well, if you go the catfishing route, of course, that explains a lot.
Yeah, no, exactly. It does. Sees Through says, what are both at Kristen behind the crime door and Steve's opinion on where Libby's phone was found? Do you both have the same location? Well, we were told by law enforcement that it was found within the area of the body somewhere in the crime scene area. That's all we know. They didn't give us a location exact. They just said that it was found. I don't believe it was in the water.
Then you have the rumors of that it was across the creek, and which ones are true, I have no idea right now.
Yeah, I none of us know, and I don't believe that it was in the water. I don't believe that, but anything, like I said, anything is possible. Jumpin' Jack Flash said, hello, Kristen and Steve. Did Randy show you his photo of the teddy bear caught in the debris under the Monon High Bridge?
Randy shared several photos to me of different things, and so I think I do have that, but and that's something that who knows how long or where.
How long and where? Yeah, exactly, where that came from. Willow Rain 73 says, Steve, do you still plan on returning in February when the foliage is the same as it would have been then? Well, you don't know.
It may not be February, but I'm going to try to get there during the same type of foliage.
Yep.
Regardless, it may be earlier. It depends on weather driven. I don't know if I can find a host that would host me through a winter storm that was 2 or 3 weeks.
I would host you, but you got to drive 2.5 hours farther west to get to me.
No, we was in a central location that was very, very convenient. That allowed me to do the other cases that I was doing up there at the same time. So that, and I'm so appreciative of them. Great people.
It's just wonderful. I'm so thrilled. Unsolved Crimes Uncovered. Allie says, at True Crime Web, did you use NVG's night vision goggles? And do you think law enforcement did?
No, I didn't. I wanted to experience, because you had heard so much of, and I wanted to see what it was going to be like at night. If there were searchers out there, that using light in night searches is great, and but it does destroy your other night vision and your senses. That you can only see what's within that beam. That you could walk when you have a light on, and you can go outside and test it yourself. Put something on the ground and walk 10 feet away from it and never shine light on it. You'll never see it.
Right. Did you have a full moon, or how was the moon the night you were out there?
I think it was like a quarter moon or something.
Okay. I
But
just
it
wondered
was
if you had
cloudy.
any
It was
moonlight.
cloudy. You had the foliage. No, I had no light. It
Okay.
was, it was, like I said, I couldn't see 5, 6 feet.
I don't know how you did that without being frightened. I would have been frightened. I would have been frightened that a deer would have come up on me. Not that I'm afraid of deer, because I'm not, but just the startle factor of coming and, coming right there to them. I don't know. It
Well,
just,
the land navigation is the biggest threat to you. My wife was worried. She says, "Oh man, what if you ran up on someone out there? Who in the world is going to be out there?"
yeah, exactly.
For
I
me,
know. No, I get it though. I mean, you start thinking those things because this is an active unsolved investigation, and you just don't know. And if people find out that people are going there and they're going there to search for clues or to search for answers, you just don't know what might happen. So, I
Purdue
know.
RN's here. Hey, Purdue RN,
Yeah, there you go.
great people. Oh
Yep.
my goodness,
I'm
what
so
a
glad.
great new member of our family we have in both her and Mr. Purdue RN. Just absolutely amazing people.
That's awesome. I'm so glad that they hosted you and took good care of you. Sees Through said, could he be trying to take them to a house within walking distance?
Sure. I mean, that's something that you have to look at. Is it a house? Is it a barn? Is it a garage? What is all the features out there? Is it to a car to transport them? But all that stuff has to be evaluated.
Yep. I think we answered this, but Molly said, Steve, did you go to Peru and look at the searching and the bridge that they were searching around? And you did.
Yes,
And you
we did.
see that.
Yes, we did. And there's not a lot that you can tell about that other than, I'm hoping they found what they had. And I have no doubt they found a lot of evidence. But is it evidence related to Delphi? That's what's going to take a lot of lab work.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of as well. I was like, one of the things that I thought has been interesting with that, since the search has been called off and they're not searching anymore, and now because immediately we didn't get any response from law enforcement about the search, and a murder sheet came out and said, well, nothing was found. It was it was just a horrible, lack of nothing. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This stuff has to go to a lab. It has to be analyzed. It has to go through all kinds of forensic testing. You're not going to be able to just jump out the next day and say, oh, guess what? We found this and it's related to Delphi. They're not going to know that right off the bat. And it could take weeks. It could take months. I hate to say it, but it could. And I just think it's funny that people don't know how law enforcement works.
I'm one of those night people. I feel safer in the dark than I do in daylight. And for whatever reason, I enjoyed working nights.
There you go. Question: how did he get out of the trails?
That is if we knew that for
$100,000 question, right?
Yeah, that would answer a lot.
Yeah, it's
the highest probability, and from the advantage, or from what I look at, that it was on that private drive. The private drive played a large part in this. How large, we just don't know yet.
Yeah, I agree with you. The more I think about the private drive, that drive, everybody calls it the private drive, but it actually comes off of a road, a main road, kind of, and you drive in there, and then it becomes like a private drive. It's like,
yeah, I think there's some access or something there that is government or something. I think
right, it's like an access road, and along that road is where Abby's house is. That's where Abby lives, and so it's quite a ways, and you have to go, and people walk it. I know people have said they've walked it. And that was the big question. Why didn't the girls just turn right on the private drive once they got down that hill, or turn to the left, I'm sorry, and run to her house. And my opinion is, I don't know the answer to that. Maybe because they couldn't, maybe because they were under control and they
Good
couldn't do that.
observation.
I'm like,
That,
they
yes,
just couldn't do that
to
because
turn away from your safe space. Everyone has safe space. Everyone has a home that if certain things go, that you're going to try to get home. That's where your protection is. That's where everything is. And what would turn you away from that?
Yep.
Make you run in the opposite
in
direction.
the opposite
There has
direction.
to be a great danger and a great threat.
Yes. And I agree with that, because the girls did walk. Mrs. Weber said that she would see the girls on occasion coming down the private drive from Abby's house. They would walk that path. So they knew how to get there. There was something terrible that kept them from going that direction.
And I do. I think they realized it at a certain point. But like I said, that's just our opinions or my speculation. And I want everyone to, that if you have information otherwise, let law enforcement know.
Oh, exactly. Anybody that has any knowledge of this crime and hasn't tipped it in, please do so. Contact the Abby and Libby tip line and turn in the information, because let me find it, because I've got it here and I'll put it up. Hold on a second. There you go. If you or someone contacted or communicated with Anthony Schatz, this was the last thing that law enforcement told us. Please contact law enforcement at Abby and Libby Tip at CACOSHRF.com or call this number and tip.
And they've never changed that strategy to yet.
No, they have not changed that. That's the last we've heard from law enforcement. That's what they wanted to know. And one of the things that I've observed, Steve, is the more that I go back and think about everything that we've seen since December of last year regarding Anthony Schatz, they didn't come out and ask us about Kegan Kline. They didn't. They didn't come out and say, hey, we found this guy named Kegan Kline who had a profile called Anthony_Schatz that he created, and we need to know who he was communicating with. They never talked about Kegan. What they said was they needed to know anyone who had communicated with the profile. And I think we may have lost sight of that, possibly. And everybody just assumed Kegan was who they were wanting information on.
Yeah, but I absolutely do believe that Kegan has a lot more to tell.
Oh, I do. I totally agree. I have no doubt in my mind on that one. No doubt. I definitely think that there is stuff that is known, and I do think we'll be shocked at how intricate all of this is as far as who's involved in it to what level.
I hope we find out. I'm going to try my best to work with the ones that have the skill sets to have an impact.
Yeah, because I know that you guys are going to be working it diligently, and that makes me feel very, very good about it. Knowing that you're going to be on the case, so to speak. My little 4-year-old grandson says that Chase is going to be on the case from the Paw Patrol. Well, Steve's going to be on the case. So,
well, and the only thing that we do is that we're trying to find that one weak link or the one bit of information that someone knows and they didn't know what they knew. And that's the only thing that we can do.
Hey, Maria, good to see you.
That if we recognize it for what it is, then of course, we're trying to connect the dots.
Right. No, exactly. And, I just appreciate your insights, like I said, and your all the things that you're doing to work the case and try to bring some sort of understanding to the area, to the crime, to how it happened, how it may have went down. it to me, when you guys go out there and you're so good about bringing back the information and actually laying it out so that just lay people can see it and understand, it makes it so much more real and changes your whole aspect of what you thought you knew about the case. Because just talking about that location doesn't do justice. You have to see it and you have to have it explained. And you've done an amazing job with that, from everything that I've seen so far. And I thank you for that.
I hope I'm not confusing the issue more than what.
I don't think you are. I think you're bringing a lot of clarity, and I think that the clarity is what's been needed for a while. So, I believe that you are amazing, and you're going to do great things. You already have, I know, in your law enforcement career, and you're just going to continue. And we appreciate you. We're going to support you any way we can.
I appreciate it. Like I said, we there's so much out there to do. And, like I said, I'm retired now and just, I've got a lot of training and there's no need for me sitting in a recliner watching cars go around a racetrack and not try to help someone.
I still watch my Formula One. I watch Formula One and NASCAR. I'm one of those girls, but I will always watch. But you can always put that on the DVR and watch it later. I don't watch.
Mrs. Steve holds me hostage when NASCAR is on, and so I have to watch the race with her.
Yeah,
and she's the big fan.
Yeah, see, there you go. And it's good though that you have that mindset and that you're willing to give back your time, because that's what you're doing. You're giving us your time and your expertise and your knowledge, and these families that you're helping to solve their cases. I know that they can't thank you enough for that.
We're working on them. Hopefully we'll solve them. And like I said, I've got my winter already scheduled set out and, across the Southeast. And so then if the weather breaks right, I've got to still go back up to Indiana again. I've got another family that we missed on this last one that
I remember you saying you didn't get to meet with them. Well, I hope that goes well for you. I thank you so much for being here with me tonight. We've been here for 2.5 hours. I'm going to let you go because I know you're tired. You need to have a cup of coffee and unwind. And
I will. Thank you. Have a great night.
Great night with you, Steve, as always. And thank you so very much for being here.
It was an honor.
Yep. You have a great evening.
Night.
Night. Guys, he's wonderful. I can't say enough about him. I hope that you all got something out of his being here with me tonight. He's always so gracious, and in the way that he shares his information and the way that he talks with us, it's I just feel, to me, in my mind, heaven in true crime would be to have him on one side of me and Perry Freeman, Cop Faxx, on the other. And I could just bounce questions off of them all day long. Those two men I have so much respect for, and I can't say enough about both of them. So I appreciate all of you sticking around. I know it was a long night, and I hope that you guys, like I said, get something good out of this. From everything that he talked about. Please go check out his channel. If you do not know about True Crime Web, please make sure that you look at his new Delphi live streams that he's done, because he's done a lot of visual documentation of his trip with the pinging of the cell phones, with the terrain and the height of the terrain and all of that. And you guys really need to see it. It makes a complete difference about all that. The other thing that I wanted to say real quick is thank you so much for my moderators who come here religiously every time I'm live without fail. They just come and they stay with me and they help keep that chat going so well. You all are amazing people and individuals. I chose you because of that. I chose each and every one of you because I felt like you would be a great addition to leadership in our community. And I cannot thank you guys enough for everything that you do for me. I'm so appreciative of all of you. Jennifer, for everything you do to run Nightbot. I wish and I hope that someday you and I get to meet in person to where I can hug you and thank you for everything that you've done for me since almost the very beginning of the channel. Thank you so much for being here as a member with me for 6 months. That is amazing. And John, I remember when I asked you to be my moderator and you told me you didn't know if you could do it. And you are an awesome moderator and you bring a lot to my chat and I really appreciate you. And I just want to say that as far as all of my members and my paid members and my subscribers that come to the shows every single night, thank you so much. To all of my new subscribers and the new people that are just checking out my channel, I hope that you realize that here we talk about facts. We're respectful. We try not to have any drama here. And that's the way I run my channel. And I hope that everyone realizes that these cases are not about me. They're not about you. They're about the victims. That's what this is about. That's what this should be about. And I will always work hard to make it about them and not to make it about me. But I love all of you. And I can't tell you how happy this past couple of weeks has been regarding the channel itself and how well it's grown. I just can't imagine that back in February when I started my channel that it would be here where it is today. If you'd have told me that it would in 8 months that I would have 2,000 people subscribe to me, I would never have believed it. So I thank you all. I want to continue to be here to cover cases with you. I will be bringing new content. I want everybody to know that I may possibly go down to just 2 live streams a week, but I will be putting out videos. If I do that, you will be getting a video of some kind from me. I found out when I did my new intro video that I really do like the creative side of it and I miss it. And that's what I first did when I started the channel. I did all videos, no live streaming. So I like to shake it up a little bit and see how that goes. But I love just being here and having the chat. I miss that. I missed it when I was gone in the hospital. And I don't like it when I can't talk to you guys. So thank you all for being here. I do want to do a giveaway real quick before I leave you for tonight. And so hold on a second and let me get my StreamYard giveaway up. Tonight we are going to do, we'll see, hashtag. We're going to do hashtag Steve in honor of Steve from True Crime Web for being here because he is amazing. And so that's what you guys need to do. Hold on one second. So if you guys would like to enter the drawing, I give away a Flora wristband. It's the black and purple one. It has the Flora girls' names on it, and it says For Justice, FOUR. And we can never forget Flora, ever. I will be getting back to covering the Flora case. Allie and I were just talking about it, that we want to get back onto that case. And there's going to be a lot of things happening with it, so we want to be talking about it. The girls are never far from my mind. So, Unsolved Crimes, Allie, thank you so much for being here. You are one of my dearest and closest friends. I love you, and I will talk to you soon. So, guys, I'm going to give you another minute. I've only got 4 entries. There's still 123 of you watching. So if you are interested in getting a wristband from Flora, please put hashtag Steve with a capital S, and you'll be entered into the drawing. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and draw. Oh, Lord, it picked me. Hang on a minute. I hate that it does that. It shouldn't include me, but it does. Yay! Congratulations, Molly. All you have to do, my dear, is send me your information and I will get you a wristband. I know. It's crazy that it does that. It does that it picks me. But Molly, it's picked you. So just send me your information and I'll get that sent out to you right away. Congratulations, my dear. I certainly appreciate you so very much. Yeah, guys, I look forward to seeing you next time. Now, this is what's happening this weekend. Some of you probably already know, but my birthday is on Monday, and this weekend is going to be interesting for me because I have birthday parties and things with my grandchildren for Halloween, since my birthday is on Halloween. So I'm not really sure what's happening on Saturday night. But if I'm going live, you will see my thumbnail. Please like and subscribe to my channel and make sure that you hit the bell for all so that you get notified when I go live. And if I post a video or if I post a thumbnail about a live stream, you'll get that notification. I also always update my community page on my channel. So you guys will know there too if I do not end up going live. If I do not end up going live on Saturday night, I would not see you guys again until Tuesday. So I just wanted to make, I will not be here on Halloween. I do apologize. I know it would be great to have a Halloween party and all of that with you guys. I really would like it, but yeah, I won't be here. So I wish you all a safe weekend. I hope that all of you get to spend some time with friends, family, your children, nieces, nephews, friends, children. This holiday is for kids. I love that about this holiday. And I hope you guys get to do that and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And please, please be kind. It does not take anything to be kind. Good night, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your evening.